Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name's John and I'm here today to talk to you about everybody's least favourite modification, and that is the performance clutch kit. So why do we need a performance clutch kit? It's quite simple. Your car comes from the manufacturer with a clutch designed to hold a certain amount of torque or power, and with the tunes that are available today on the latest generations of engines, it's just quite simple that we can exceed those limits of that standard clutch just off a basic stage 1 remap, never mind if you're looking to go forward at stage 2 and stage 3. So here at Awesome we've been supplying performance clutches through all of our life, 25 years, and we've used many different brands, manufacturers. For a number of years we went down to one manufacturer of performance clutch, and that was Sachs Performance. The reason that we went with Sachs Performance is they're the only company who are an OE supplier supplying performance products, and what that does is that gives them great credibility. You know, they're offering a great quality product, but it isn't one without a slight downside. With Sachs, you do find that you're losing a little bit of that factory drivability that we like. And the way the modification game is going at the minute, it's a lot less acceptable to have any kind of compromise that used to be okay, you know, back in the day when we started off tuning all the Mark 1s, 2s and 3s, you know, a heavy clutch, a juddery clutch, something that wasn't great to drive in traffic. You know, that was perfectly acceptable. That was the norm. That was what we got used to. But as tuning has developed and vehicles have become more refined and people are tuning more daily drivers, you know, we need to come up with a solution for you that offers all of the performance benefits with none of the downside. So that's why I'm here today, to talk to you a little bit more about a newer brand that we've taken on in the last 12 months. And that is RTS Performance. So RTS Performance approached us about a year and a half ago now, showing us their products. The guys down at RTS there are guys who come with a great credibility. They've spent many years dealing in performance clutch, and they've decided to go it alone, and they've released their own RTS brand. So going back to what I said a little bit earlier on, when it comes to having modifications with no compromise, RTS are the kind of guys who had that at the forefront of their mind when they were carrying out the development for their clutches. So what they wanted to do was offer a clutch that had the additional clamping capacity to allow us to pump as much power through these cars as possible. Again, yes, within a limit, but it's something that exceeds the standard clutch by about 50% in a lot of cases. But they didn't want to deliver us a clutch that was snatchy to drive, that was juddery, and worst of all, something that had an excessively heavy pedal feel. So if we have a look at the RTS clutch cover itself, to look at, it doesn't look that much different from any normal clutch cover. But what they've done behind the scenes, and if we go inside to where the actual fingers are, they've played with the pivot points there. And by playing with the pivot points, what that allows to do, it allows them to give us a pedal feel which is very close to standard. Those of you who are used to driving performance clutches, you're going to find once you drive an RTS, it's actually a little bit unnervy at first because it is that close to the OE pedal feel. You don't think that you're actually getting any of the additional clamping pressure, and that's required due to the lightness of the pedal. If we go into RTS a little bit more, when we're looking about the drivability side of things, you have a look at this side of the actual pressure plate, and it looks very similar to any other pressure plate. But what they've actually done is they've come up with a dual friction design. So if you have a look on that side, you can see it's got the paddle segments, what you would normally associate with a paddle clutch. And what this allows them to do is this allows additional friction to obviously help hold the power, while on the flywheel side you're keeping that organic material, which allows for a much smoother bite of the pedal, so you're not getting any of that snatchiness. What you will find is when you buy a clutch, they do have a bedding in procedure. Anybody who fits a brand new performance clutch goes out there, drives it flat out or puts it straight on a dyno on full load, potentially you're going to risk damaging your clutch. You do need on the sack stuff to give them about 400 to 500 miles. On the RTS, because of this dual friction material, you actually need to give this 1,000 miles to bed in. And the reason for that is because you have two different friction materials that both wear at completely different rates. You will find that the pedal side will bed into the clutch cover really, really quickly. But because that initially starts taking up majority of the work, it takes a lot longer for the flywheel side, the organic material, to bed in to the actual flywheel. And that's why it's essential that you carry out the bedding in procedure as stated, and you do get some instructions in the box there of what needs to be done. We're just going to go into a little bit more detail about the different clutch types for you. I'm going to start off with what would be your normal organic clutch, and this drive plate, as you can see, has the same material on both sides, but the centre of it isn't sprung. So a lot of other drive plates you'll see have springs in them, and the reason for that is, again, with all the modern day cars that we're driving now, they all come with a dual mass flywheel, and basically that dual mass flywheel that has springs within the two halves of that flywheel, and that's what offers the cushion. So there's no longer any need for the drive plate to carry springs. It isn't essential. Some others do have them. Now generally an organic drive plate like this, it's going to give you the ability to tune your car, but only to a limit. Depending what application you're going to go for. Certainly with the Sachs ones on the MQB cars and the cars that are running the IS38, stage 2 is a little bit too much for it, and you would have to go for something like this. And this is a paddle clutch. Now with a paddle clutch, these have the ability to hold a substantially higher amount of torque than what the organic one does. Now looking at them both, you'd think, well, why is that? The organic one, that's got more material on it, that has to be able to hold more power than this one, and that's not the case for a simple reason, and that's down to the actual materials that they're made of. So the pucks on the paddle clutch, they're much more abrasive, which means that they can hold a substantially larger amount of power. And this one's a 5 paddle clutch, and you can see them with 4, and some of them have 6, 8 in some cases. It's all going to depend on your own vehicle application. And you can see, even though this one's designed to run with a dual mass flywheel, it is still sprung in the centre, and that's just to give it that little bit of extra drivability, that little bit of extra cushioning as you lift your foot off the clutch and you engage it to drive. So for many, many years, these two types of clutches were pretty much all you would see in your normal road car. You would have an organic one, or you would have your paddle. And then just going back to RTS a little bit more, this is something that is unique to them, and this is where they have the combination of the paddle and the organic, and again it is sprung in that case. With clutches, one of the things about them, and one of our most asked questions, is about reliability, durability, warranty. And same with any of your real working performance parts, a clutch is not going to last you forever. And a performance clutch, you can pretty much guarantee you're not going to get the same sort of life as you would out of a completely standard clutch. They are open to abuse. So the same as your actual car itself, you know, your tyres, you know, you put a full tank of fuel in there, you go out and you absolutely hammer that car day in, day out. All those things are going to wear out quicker. And it's exactly the same with a clutch. So if you want your car to last as long as possible, if you want your expensive new clutch to last as long as possible, it's important that you actually treat it with care. I mean, these cars absolutely, you know, especially the four-wheel drive stuff, they launch amazingly. You know, they get off the line like nothing that's ever been there before them. But those kind of stresses that are applied to your clutch when you're driving in that way, you know, that's going to drastically reduce the life of it and possibly break it. One of the things that we do see can be what people class as prematurely wearing out a clutch. And they come to us and they want a replacement clutch because it's worn out. But that's the point, it's worn out. You know, if you wear out a wearable item, that's it, it's no longer going to be of any use for you, and you would need to buy a replacement. And it's very, very simple to see once a clutch is removed of what's actually gone wrong with it. Every clutch will tell a story for whatever reason. They're all warranted against a manufacturer's defect, not against wearing out. And there are a number of different factors and other issues that we can see when we're having clutches returned to us for being inspected. The EA 113 engine, generally the KO4 car, you know, S3 8P, Mark 6 Golf R, the Leon Cupras, that 2-litre TFSI car, it's a depress clutch to start, which in essence what that does is it makes you, before you start the vehicle, apply a load of pressure and lateral force onto the crank, and that over time wears out the thrust washers on the crank of this car. And what we have seen is a number of people who have had a clutch failure, or what they assume to be a clutch failure, driving the car, the clutch starts slipping, right, time for my performance clutch, put a performance clutch in, and within a few hundred miles they're finding that the clutch is slipping again. And it's not actually anything to do with the clutch itself, it's because you've got that extra lateral movement in the actual crank. When you're pressing the pedal, you're forcing the crank over, and that takes clamping force away from the clutch. So whenever you're doing an installation on a performance clutch, there are a number of things that you need to make sure that you're checking first. And it may seem obvious, you know, for many people it is. You know, the guys who are working in our workshop, they know these like the back of the hand, and the likes of the play in the input shaft, the crank end float issues that the 2-litre TFSI can have. You know, they need to be eliminated before you even consider mounting up this clutch. Certainly don't ever just treat it as a case of box out, clutch in, and away you go. You need to make sure you do those checks, and that just can save you a lot of pain long term. Whenever there's an issue with a clutch, you know, it's always a big job, and that's the last thing we want anybody to see. You know, it's important that you're educated and you understand the full workings of how the clutch operates, what other components on the vehicle can be infected, just to stop you from having any long-term problems. Just to conclude for today, you know, a performance clutch, if you're looking to tune your vehicle or your manual vehicle, you know, it's an essential modification and something that you're really going to need. If you have any questions about anything that I've spoken about today or any of these brands, please feel free to speak to the guys. They're every bit as knowledgeable as what I am. Thank you very much for watching. Leave us a comment below if you have any questions, and stay safe.